Welcome to The Practical Teacher. Today in our series, we're talking about some of our essential classroom management tips for every teacher. So, in this series, we'll be talking about the four C's. So, as you can remember, in our last video, I discussed the different strategies for assigning seats for students and how seating can actually improve students' performance and behavior in the class. On this video, I'm going to cover the principles of establishing a good classroom management rules, which I'm titling the four C's. So if you want to find out more about how to assign your seating for your students to transfer in your class, to basically develop different tactics for assigned seating to improve student learning, you will see the link for the video in the description. So the four C's of classroom management are create, communicate, be consistent, and collaborate. So when we say create classroom rules, every teacher realizes and knows very early on, as part of maybe even their student teaching, or maybe in those weeks before school starts, before you actually get your first class, that you have to have rules. Really, a rule in a classroom is actually a safeguard, not just for you, but for the students also. It actually lets the students know ahead of time what's really acceptable in the class. What kind of behavior is this as the teacher expecting? And as a result of that, of course, what could be the consequences of violating that rule? So that's why I say classroom rules are a safeguard. It's safe. It keeps the students safe. They know what's expected of them. It also lets them know how to self-manage their behavior in a school and working environment. And it also ensures that students feel safe, both physically and emotionally. It's nothing worse than not really knowing the rule of a game or rule of a situation and then basically get penalized later because you broke that rule. So, how are some ways that you can actually create classroom rules? One, you could, of course, include in your rules behavior. For example, you might have behavior. For me, my behavior is in my classroom is that when the tardy bell rings, you should be sitting in your seat. So that's an expected rule that I've actually established. Classroom expectations. So you want to probably have something about your homework policy, or how assignments are being posted, or where assignments are, deadlines for assignments. If you're absent or tardy, what do you do as a student to get the work? How you have students relate to each other. So, some of my rules in my class also include, of course, like, students have to be respectful of other students. Students have to also keep the assignment due dates. So I don't really take late assignments. So you want students to know what the classroom's rules are so they can be successful in the classroom environment, and they also can feel the opportunity to be successful. The second C that I want to talk about is communicate. So we have classroom rules. Great, wonderful. You've thought them through, you've planned them out, you've set them up. But how do I actually communicate those classroom rules? So, first of all, the reason why we want to communicate classroom rules is because we want to have students to be responsible. We want students to be have personal responsibility and social responsibility for the actions that they are doing. So students also, by having that responsibility, they have buy-in. They're part of the process. They're not put in a threatened position where they don't know the rule and then later on they get penalized for that rule. So that's the importance of communicating that rule. So some ways that I actually communicate my rules in my class, I have a syllabus. I have a syllabus that I start out pretty much the first day of school. The syllabus is posted in my Schoology accounts. It's posted, available for the parents to see. Matter of fact, I require what I call like a receipt of syllabus paper that students fill out, the parents get to fill out. And if they have anything they would like to say to me about regarding something regarding that student, they also have the opportunity to do that. So every day in class, I enforce my rules. The bell is ringing. I'm saying everyone should be seated. Okay, John, you should be sitting down. Okay, we're going to the bathroom. Well, you must get a pass before you leave. So even in my day-to-day procedures, I'm enforcing my classroom rules. I'm doing that not because the kids have forgotten, but I'm actually giving a reason for them also understanding why are we doing this. Okay, the door must remain locked, or we can't, all of us are not answering the door at the same time. One student goes out at a time. You want to communicate these rules as many different ways as possible, so then it becomes sort of like the second nature to students. I say real world situation. So a situation comes up, a student says, I need to go into the bathroom. The policy is that the first 20 minutes of class, no one really goes to the bathroom. I don't feel well. Can I go to the bathroom? Are you feeling that sick? So we use real world situations with students so students understand how the rules are and what the rules are actually being communicated. Create and share your syllabus with the class and the parents. So as I said, I already have my syllabus posted on my Schoology account, or I posted in my classroom, Google Classroom, that whatever you might be using. But I also share that when I have parent night. So when I have parent night, usually it comes after, like, I want to say the first month of school starting. I share that with the parents, and I go through different rules that I might see students are having a problem with, maybe sometimes being absent, not knowing how to get the paperwork in, or maybe they're struggling with how to get their assignments in on time. So I share the classroom rules also with the parents on parent night. Reinforce your rules in your day-to-day classroom procedures. So sometimes situations actually might arise, and maybe students, maybe they didn't realize there was a rule about that, even though I actually have given them the rules. I even sometimes test my students on the classroom rules as part of a quiz grade. Um, I may have to share with the parent that part of the syllabus that the student is actually asking me to violate. So I'm communicating this classroom rules on an ongoing basis. Don't feel like you're being redundant, or don't feel like it's something that you shouldn't be saying again, or feeling frustrated that you have to repeat that. After a while, the rules become second nature to the students, so they won't even think about it anymore or realize that you're actually communicating that rule, because it becomes part of who they are in the classroom. So that's our second C: communicate. Third rule that we have for classroom management is being consistent. So consistency is the key for everything that you really do as a teacher. You want to consistently reinforce the rules, because by reinforcing that rule, it helps to develop the memory of the rule to the student. It's almost like, if you are a person who does a lot of exercise, and then, you're doing it for a while, you're doing it for a while, then maybe you get an injury and you don't exercise. When you go back to doing that exercise that you have done before, it's been said, of course, that your muscles have memory, and they remember that, and it goes back to where it was at prior to whatever incident you have. So keeping that in mind, that classrooms will operate the same way. Without the students thinking about it, they will probably involuntarily do something according to the rule, because they have a memory of that rule. So never leave room for misunderstanding. So when you have a rule in place, kids don't have to misunderstand. No one has to feel like someone's getting unfair treatment, or there's some type of bias going on. Nothing worse than hearing students complain about a teacher that is actually not being fair. No student can control if the teacher likes them or not likes them. But if everybody has the same rules, then we all know what is expected of us. How to be consistent. Your consistency starts the first day of school. I have actually had a meeting at the last day of school regarding a classroom rule. It can be to the last day of school. So don't get frustrated that you have to constantly repeat these rules over and over again. Never break your own rule. Like, I've had students say to me, well, can I just turn this in 2 weeks later? I just want to get the grade. Can I just get the grade? And I always remind them, I'm not breaking my own rule. So there are really no exceptions to an established rule. Of course, in your rules, I have rules like, deadline to be on time for assignments, but I do say in my rules, if there's a situation, a personal situation that needs to be addressed, please refer to the teacher. So that means that if the parent kids come to school and say, okay, something was happening at my house last night, I had an emergency at the house, I will also help them to work around the rule because of that exception I have in my rule. So some examples of being consistent: you remind the rules through email. Students will say, can I turn in this assignment? It's now the end of the 9 weeks. Can I get rid of that Z? I send it in an email. I might remind them in the classroom procedures. I actually have a poster that has my classroom rules posted on it. So I'm reminding the students, allow students even in the class to reinforce the rule. Sometimes when a student will turn something in, another student might say, well, you can't do that. The rule, da, 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 about being late, or the rule about having your notebook every day in class is part of your being supplies and being prepared. So students also will fit right into preparing other students or reminding other students of the rule. So keep that in mind about being consistent. So if you can't be consistent with the rule, or because maybe it doesn't work for you, you're not comfortable with it, it's better for you to eliminate the rule than to inconsistently enforce it. And then the fourth C of our classroom management is called collaboration. So when we collaborate, we mean that we are, as a teacher, we are creating a community with the students. So you want to have the classroom be a community, not a us versus we situation. Collaboration also develops teamwork in the classroom. Students get buy-in when they collaborate with the teacher. Collaboration also has students understand the actual rule itself because you give them the opportunity to apply that rule. So how do I develop collaboration in my rule classroom? One way I've done, and it's different ways you can do this, but one way I've actually had students create a rule that they think they would like to have in the classroom. I've had students say, can we have the rule that, students have an opportunity to get like a assignment dropped if their grades start falling below a certain number. So I've had the rules that we as a class can agree on. Students decide on a rule, the class as a group decides, and I usually give them like 2 opportunities to add to that rule list, so we can adopt and agree to a student rule that adds to the teacher rule. We could also, by collaborating, you also help develop foster these student relationships in the classroom that are positive and supportive of each other. You encourage other students student lives in a sort of like they can communicate their ideas, but they're not in a judgy type of zone. So it's a judge-free zone. So some examples, of course, would be that maybe a new student is coached by other students who have been in the classroom already about some particular rules that have come up. Students make suggestions for adding classroom rules. And then sometimes, of course, another collaboration, I have students, they share their supplies. They realize, hey, he didn't bring his power cord today, or I don't have I have an extra notebook I can give to you. So this develops a community, which actually helps foster collaboration within a classroom. So note, as a recap, keep in mind 4 C's of classroom management. We create a rule, we communicate the rule, we're consistently reinforcing the rule, and then we collaborate with our students as a group, as a community, to reinforce the rules of the classroom. So all of us can have a safe and happy classroom environment. Thank you for joining me for my 4 C's of classroom management, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the near future. Thank you.